Sandra. Thank you for joining me in my garden today and tuning into my YouTube channel on Modern Living. On Modern Living is my channel where I talk a lot about vegetable gardening and perennial gardening as well as houseplants, and I also give you some tips and tricks in the kitchen. I hope that if you enjoy my channel that you'll subscribe. Today I'm in my garden and I'm talking about fall mums or hardy mums. Now, depending on where you live, fall mums may or may not be hardy. I'm in southwestern Ontario, which is about a zone 5B, and here mums are a little bit finicky. Sometimes they come back and sometimes they won't. And I'll give you a few tricks on how to get that success rate a little higher. The first thing you want to remember about fall mums is they only bloom once a year and only for a limited amount of time. Usually 2 to 3 weeks depending on how warm it is and lots of other variables. So I've actually selected a few different varieties because I want some to be flowering now and some to wait to flower till later in the fall. So I picked a couple smaller ones that are already in bloom. These flowers are mostly out. There's still some buds to open, but they will probably flower for another 2 weeks max, and then the flowers are going to get brown and die off and I'm going to have to trim them back. They will not flower a second time this season. That's just the way fall mums are. There's nothing you can do to make them flower twice. They're a one and done kind of deal. I've also selected this mum, which is very, very green, has very tight buds yet because I really don't want it to flower till more like October, if at all possible. So that's about 4 weeks away, and judging by the size of how tight these buds are, I've got a pretty good chance that it's gonna flower then. So that's the first thing to keep in mind when you're planting your fall mums. If you wanna have mums that are in flower for Thanksgiving, you certainly don't wanna be planting these ones that are in full bloom right now. You're gonna have nothing that looks nice for Thanksgiving. Either buy your mums in flower when you want to have them in flower, or think about at least when you're buying them, whether you want them to be flowering now or later. So that's my first little piece of advice about fall mums. Second thing that you want to consider is if you want them to winter over, or have the chance of wintering over, you need to get them in the ground early. They need some time to get those roots established yet this fall so that they've got enough of a base there to hold them over till next winter, or sorry, till next spring. So, general rule of thumb in southwestern Ontario is you need to have your mums in the ground by absolutely no later than the 15th of September. If you miss that window, you can still put them in the ground, but just don't really count on them wintering over. It's just the way it is. Winters are too harsh. There's not enough time for those roots to get established. So definitely keep that in mind. If you want your mums to winter over, you need to get them in the ground early. And if you want them to flower later, that's okay. Just buy some that aren't in flower yet, and they will flower later, don't you worry. Okay, so now that I've told you my little scoop about fall mums, I'm gonna get ready to plant this baby. So the first thing I'm gonna do is set it aside and get rid of all of my mulch in this flower bed. This is one of my perennial beds that I mulched this year, and it's done a great job of helping to keep the weeds down, but I wanna make sure I have that mulch left to put back around the base of my plant. Now I'm gonna need to dig a hole at least as big as the size of my pot, so the easiest thing to do is just loosen my pot off of my plant. Pull it out. Check out those roots. What a beautiful, healthy mum plant. Fantastic. I'm just gonna set that down here, and I'm gonna fill this pot with the soil where I'm gonna plant my mum. Now this is a fairly new bed, so this soil digs up really easy, which is nice. Now, I may need to put some back in around to fill it back up. So I'm just gonna dig my hole. Okay, I think that's good enough. I'm just gonna pop my mum in there. Ugh. Yeah, okay. Now I do want to put some of the soil from my pot back around the edges of my mum because I want to make sure that there's no gaps of air around the plant, okay? I want to make sure that as much as possible, those roots have a really good shot of growing and rooting in. So I'm just gonna put some soil in around it, out of my pot. Make sure there's no big spots in there. There. There we go. Okay, just like that. Now I'm gonna pack the mulch up again around the base of my plant. This mulch has done a fabulous job this year in my flower bed of helping to keep the weeds down. If you don't mulch your beds yet, you might wanna consider it. Okay, I spilt a little bit over here. We'll throw that in the pot. There you go, just like that. My fall mum is planted. I've got another spot in mind for my other 2 mums that I'm gonna plant in just a minute. But that's really the secret to trying to have mums to winter over. Get them in the ground early. Make sure you keep them wet in the fall so that they've got a real good chance for those roots to get established and to get in the ground there. And then I've read conflicting reports. So one report says Once you've had frost and your mum is dead, to cut it back and pile mulch over top of it. That's one way of doing it. The other report suggests that you leave the plant intact so that it will gather leaves and snow naturally and act as an insulation for the root ball under the ground. I usually don't even get around to cutting them off in the fall, so I usually go with method 2, just because I don't usually get around to it. But either way, the point is you want to try to have some insulation around this mum to have any chance of it wintering over, and hopefully in the spring it'll come back. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you've enjoyed my video, and I hope that you'll subscribe to my channel. Have a great day.